one of the youngest ethical hackers or I'm not sure. There was some echo. So I've been one of the ethical hackers in India. Way back in 1999, I have been, assisting. When I was 16, I was assisting BSNL for their cybersecurity operations. I have been one of the youngest authors in India. At the age of 18, I've written a book on cybersecurity. So that gives me a privilege to call myself as a one of the youngest authors. Having said that, uh, as Akshay has already briefed about the organizations I've served, it includes various organizations which are domestic as well as international by nature. So Grant Thornton is one of the big five, I would say, across the globe. And I've served as an executive director there. I have served Reliance as a general manager for cybersecurity at very early stages of my life at around 28, 29 years. So that comes a kind of experience in terms of providing right kind of security guidance to all of stuff. So now today, as we speak, we have gathered here to understand cybersecurity. And just one request for all the participants, and that happens across all the trainings and all the online sessions is, we sometimes forget to mute ourselves. So I request all of you to keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking. With reference to our code of conduct of conducting this exercise is very simple. We'll keep ourselves mute unless we want to speak. And whenever we want to speak, we can obviously raise hands. We have that notification of raising hand, and you can ask me questions. Okay, I'll take out the names, and you can immediately raise your concerns or raise questions that you might come across. Okay, this is going to be a very interactive session because cybersecurity is something which cannot be dealt with one-sided communication, just like TCP/IP protocol. It has to be a two-way handshake or three-way handshake, which happens, right? So similarly, our pattern of understanding, our pattern of discussion is going to be two ways. Okay. Pardon me, and this kind of sessions where we have to talk about lot more about the processes, compliances, frameworks. Sometimes being a more of theoretic session, you might get anxious. You might get some of the terms which doesn't pop up in your or does not understand the sense of it. So please feel free to stop me then and there by raising hand, and I'll sort it out for you. Okay. As I said, this session is going to be very informative in terms of topics as well as in terms of what do you say theory sessions. So let's try to keep it both way interactive so that we all are able to understand what we are trying to go through it. So let me just share my screen. So is my screen visible to all? No.
Not yet.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Now visible.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for the confirmation. So, as I said, this is going to be a process-driven session, and mostly we'll be talking about risk assessments. So, before we start with the session, I just want to understand a couple of things from you. And as I said, if whoever knows, they can obviously raise hands. This session or these questions are, going to be making me understand where, since the training has been happening from quite some time now, it will be easier for me to understand where we are standing, so that if we have the basics very much clear, we can move on to the actual topics, or rather, I will explain you how things are happening here. Okay. So first and foremost is, what exactly is cybersecurity so far you have understood? As per you, what is cybersecurity? Anyone who want to explain? Actually, if you can just help me out with that. If anybody wants to explain it.
Sure, sir. So I'll request anyone could explain, sir, what we have learned so far in cybersecurity. Just a basic introduction would do.
And this is not to judge your understanding or something. I just want to understand where, what till what part we have covered it, so that I can start with from there itself.
No, sir,
Sir,
they have covered. Yeah, yeah.
may I,
Right,
sir?
Please go ahead.
Yes, I am
Yes.
Rohit Kumar. Sir, cybersecurity by we mean, sir, whatever where our digital assets are, the measures taken to protect them broadly can be classified as a cybersecurity. And uh, be it our data, be it our application, uh, or our infra, digital infra, through which we achieve the digital presence. The means or measures taken to protect any of these can be classified as a cybersecurity measure.
Very good. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sridhar. Mr. Mule?
So my name is Rohit Kumar.
Good
Okay, Ram. Thank you
good
so
evening,
much.
sir. I am S.K. Mulmule. Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Mule. Please go ahead.
Yes. Basically, security of network infrastructure in order to protect the information and data. That is cybersecurity.
Fantastic. Who else wants to explain it to me? And I'll tell you the reason why I'm asking this question. Who else?
Hi, sir. My name is Numesh. When we talk about cybersecurity, it generally comprises of three things, like uh, people, process, and technology. So we have to take care at the level of the people who are handling the things, then the process that is there in place, and then the technology, the assets that all are there. So it is a holistic thing that comprises all these aspects. So
Absolutely perfect. This is actually the overall, perspective to cybersecurity. Okay. Now, sometimes people get confused, or sometimes people may only consider that the cybersecurity only tries to defend the digital infrastructure or digital assets. Okay. But in principle, the cybersecurity is supposed to address any sort of challenges or issues that you find across the organization. Okay. Thank you so much. It was fantastic. Now coming to the next question. What are the key parameters defining cybersecurity? Or what are that we basically call pillars of cybersecurity? Okay. Some
Confidentiality, availability, and integrity. I think triad.
fantastic. Is it Anil?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So CIA generally we call them as uh, basic pillars of cybersecurity. Have I missed something out?
Surinder sir, would you like to say something? You raised hand.
Okay.
Mr. Surinder Paul.
No, no. So see, most of the time we consider CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay. So now first we have to understand whatever we're saying, like people, process, technology, then CIA, what are these basically? When we talk about hacking, ethical hacking, cybersecurity, defending and protecting information assets, it is just like, we have to deploy tools, technologies, people, they will take care of it, right? The most important and challenging part becomes just, see, everything is owned by business, right? Let's say, for example, you work in a company, you are a CEO of the company. Now, in order to run that company, you require three types of assets, correct? What are those? People, people who will work towards a business, who will drive the business and run the business for you, correct? Now, in order to effectively manage these people or effectively get the work done from these people, we will bring the technology into the system, correct? So laptop, desktops, networks, firewalls, routers, all these are technological equipment. Please understand, the technology does not create a business. The technology is always the facilitator here, correct? Now, let me give you this way. Even if the technology doesn't exist, or there's a company which does not adopt any technology, they can still do business, yes or no? Right? So, business requires technology to facilitate the users to improvise their quality of work, to improvise the operational time, to improvise the various other parameters. So it is facilitated. Now, what does process have to do here? Can anyone define what process is?
Like who has the, suppose there are a number of equipments kept at a certain place, then who has the access? How are we like defining the access to that room? Like so will it be couple of people or the members of the organization, or anybody can be there? Like is it placed in open? So like
Fantastic.
that could be a part of process.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Who else?
Yes, I am Mulmule.
Yes,
Procedure
Mr.
and methods, predefined procedures and method to control the flow of information.
Okay. Okay. That to some extent, see, that's what the reason why we are having this kind of conversation is to ensure that we understand these things. Okay. It is not hard and fast. It is not, So I'll tell you. I'll give you example. You must have known that there's a standard for information system which is called as ISO 27001. Correct? Now,
Sir, there is some.
Yes.
Hello, excuse me, your voice is very feeble, sir. The mic is distant or some room effect is there. I don't know.
Is my voice okay to everyone?
It's okay for us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So please check. I think the issue is at your network end, sir. So, Mr. Mulmule, as we were discussing, so see, please understand, when we talk about any framework, forget about whatever is written in the screen, okay? Just because we're trying to understand the process, we have to understand this thing. What is the process? And just like, I'm ISO 9001, 20,000 and 27,001 certified, I can tell you one thing very clear. Process is a set of rules and methodology that needs to be followed within the organization to improvise the quality and standard of people who are the part of the system. Okay. Now, when you go to organizations, they will, bombard you with a lot of guidelines, SOPs, processes, compliances, and all the stuff. Process tells simple two things. One, if an auditor comes to your organization, auditor sees that there is no process defined or documented, it is absolutely fine. If the process is not documented, no problem. But they will go to 100 people in your organization, they will ask the same set of rules, same questions, if all those 100 people respond in the same fashion, you'll get certified with the ISO standard. But the problem is, even if you have the policy defined in your organization and all those 100 people respond in a different way, you won't get compliances. Okay. Why? What is the reason? The reason is pretty simple. The standard asks everyone to follow a set of norms. Now, when you follow a set of norms, that becomes a process. Okay. Now, coming back to our basic elements of cybersecurity, irrespective of whether it's a technology, you are appointing a hacker, ethical hacker, VABT professional, and stuff. They will try to come in the system and try to understand if your people, technology, and process is protected from a malicious attempt or malicious attack. Okay. So this is the actual value of people, process, technology. Why cybersecurity tries to protect people, process, technology from the cyber criminal standpoint. Now come to CIA. The basic pillar of CIA and the why CIA is important in cybersecurity as well as technical, not just technical, but also in the process division is, please understand, again, we might have seen a lot of uh, businesses, we are working with the companies, we are looking at organizations from day in, day out perspective. One thing that you come across is, or let me every employee in any company is of same value, same reputation, and same honor. Having said that, when it comes to protecting and defending the asset, we have to prioritize the assets. Okay. Now, when we talk about prioritizing the asset, it is applicable to all, be it the asset from process standpoint, be it the asset from people standpoint, or be the asset of technological sense. Okay. Now, when we talk about CIA, what is C? I want quickly the answer. What is C in CIA, and what is the example of it? Surendra, I think you have raised your hand. If you have any question, please you can ask, or you can lower your hand.
Sir, C means confidentiality or critical, confused.
Okay. Who would want to respond to CIA?
Confidentiality, confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
No, absolutely fine. See, that is what I do not want. I do not want the one-line answers. I want what do you understand from confidentiality?
Unauthorized access to information means personal data may be breached by someone, like keylogger phishing through phishing or keylogger attacks.
Correct. So you're saying that unauthorized access to information, right? But then problem is, let's say for example, and how do you ensure that the data is confidential? Anyone? Or let me
authenticate.
Like one example.
Absolutely. Please go ahead. Somebody was explaining the example.
Yeah, sir, hi, sir, Nimish this time. So, like one example could be role-based access.
Okay.
Like if we define like role-based access for different.
You are
levels of
actually, Nimish, you are actually at the answer to my question, okay? Which is the actual crux of the entire discussion, okay? I'll come to it. But that's a very valid and very good point, okay? I'm coming to it. So see, somebody said that the confidentiality means, unauthorized access, correct? Now, let me ask you this scenario. I use my Gmail, okay? I have shared my password to Nimish, for example. Now Nimish is accessing my Gmail account. Is it an unauthorized access?
No, it's not unauthorized.
But still, just because Nimish has got it, he can access it, correct?
Yes, correct.
So does the confidentiality is intact?
No.
Because you
Yes, sir.
trust, so you have shared. So there's
No,
no.
no, sir. It's yes, sir. Because it's a transfer of authorization. We have authorized some person, right?
That is
Maybe
the
it's a
actual
verbal.
point, Anilji. That is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. See, the CIA value, it's pretty old. It does not hold today. It requires one more A, which is called as authorization. So now, the overall principle of CIA stands on 4 pillars, which is called as CIAA: confidentiality, integrity, availability, and authorization. You getting my point? Understood, everyone? Why authorization is important? See, let's say, for example, confidentiality means my information will be confidential. Okay. In case my password is being leaked out, okay, let's say I have some hacker has got access to my password. Because they have got the access to my credential does not mean that they are authorized to access my information. Correct? So the last layer which comes is authorization. A classic example of you is the banking systems where we have implemented MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. Correct? Now, when we talk about CIA as a principle, okay, now CIA as a principle stands for vetting or validating the assets. Okay, we'll come to, as we progress in this session, we'll come to those terms. So now it is clear what is CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, and authorization, why it is required, and what are the 3 other people, process, technology, and why we want to protect them from CIA perspective. Okay. Now let's talk about few basic things. And these are very important to understand when we talk about risk assessment or when we talk about cybersecurity frameworks. Yes, Anil.
Yes, sir. I have a question here. Question is that can you differentiate or give some more advice on say authorization and accountability, as there is a triple A concepts are there, right? So how do we differentiate authorization and say accountability in a say operations?
Fantastic. So though we are jumping onto the further course, but still I'll give you an example. So when we talk about accountability, accountability is nothing but a role-based access. It comes to a top layer of role-based access where somebody is accountable for assigning roles and responsibilities to the people. Okay. Let's say, for example, a system administrator is accountable for operating or managing the operating system or system devices. Okay. So he's accountable for operating system, managing operating system security. Now, in due course of his role, he come across and he helped network security guy to patch a network device. Okay. Now, what he has done is this individual has become a supportive instrument in securing a network device, but this accountability of the entire security of network is not with the system administrator; it is with the network administrator. So, accountability to assign roles and responsibility is something which the administrator or system administrator, network administrator has to take care of. Authorization means when you have given approval to something, like for example, zero trust architecture. Zero trust architecture says that irrespective of whoever is accessing the system and whatever kind of authentication or whatever kind of access they have, irrespective of the level of access, every time that system is trying to access a resource, they need to get themselves verified and authorized. Okay. So even if the CEO's laptop is trying to access server, it really doesn't matter. Every time the CEO wants to connect to a network system, they will have to authorize their systems using OTP, using token system and all that stuff. Clear, Anil?
Yes, sir. I do have a different situation. Can I elaborate that? Sir, one situation.
Of course, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
sir. See, for example, one finance guy is there who is doing the financial transactions, right? Or say the finance head, right? Now he had some you can writes in ERP applications, right? Now he is not available, so he had transferred some rights to the another guy, available guy. Now,
Correct.
how do we? You can say we can see the accountability. See, accountability is with the first guy only, right?
Mhm.
So how do we address here?
Now, see, the point is, let's understand from a technical standpoint. Okay, you have asked the question. I'll say Mr. X was
Yeah.
responsible for X operations. Okay, so he
Right.
was responsible for doing X operations into system. Okay, now due to unavailability of this gentleman, maybe due to personal issues, accident, death, or whatever it is, the business cannot stop. So this operation now has to be performed by Mr. B, right? That is what the question is, right?
Right, sir.
Now, when the Mr. B is going to be operating onto that device or taking control of that process, there are two things which will happen. One, as per process, this guy needs to take approval. Okay, so it has to follow the approval process on temporary basis or whatever it is. Now, as soon as this guy holds up the approval, that is what is the example. So, Mr. A has passed on all the credentials, all the information to Mr. B. Okay, but now the point is, as soon as Mr. B receives its credentials and tries to log into the system, there will be an authorization which will be in place. So in terms of process, this authorization will be given by CEO if he's a CFO, correct? If Mr. A was CFO and he was managing the financial operations, and now he wanted to transfer this financial operations to Mr. B, the CEO is the authority who will authorize this transfer. Okay. Now, if the CEO has not authorized this transfer, the accountability still is Mr. A. If the CEO has authorized the transaction, that means the accountability is now of Mr. B.
So here's the question is that the responsibilities of say, Mr. A, right? Now, due to unavailability of Mr. A for a time period, that B is there, Mr. B is there, and he's running the transactions, running the operations, right? Now, as it is a temporary period, Mr. B cannot take the accountability, right? Yeah, he can say, right? So here is some catch that because the approval authority is different, he is not bothered about the accountability. He's bothered about the running operations are running or not.
Mhm.
So how do we address that? Accountability will be for particular period. The second guy, the B, who is available in a temporary period, right? He's
Correct.
not accountable for the you can say any transactions or any happenings will be there.
I'll give you, and I try to give, I love to give you real world examples. Let's take a banking for use, perspective. Okay, banks.
Okay.
Okay, so you have an account in a bank. You are operating on an account. Okay, so when you are working or you have a bank account in, let's say, HDFC Bank, you are operating that bank account and you want to withdraw fund. Okay, now when you withdraw that fund, just because you are having your debit card, credit card, whatever it is, you know the PIN number, and now you have the phone number on which the OTP will come. Okay. So the OTP here is the validation, which is authorization for you. Okay. So let's say, for example, tomorrow you give your card to somebody else and try to ask him or her to withdraw 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees from your account. So what you have done is you have passed on your credentials to that individual. Now, in order to withdraw the fund, OTP is required. So you have also handed on the phone to her or him. Okay. So now what you have done is you have passed on the authorization as well. Correct? Now, in this case, you have given just the authorization to access or transact on behalf of you. Till here it is clear. Till this point,
Yes.
the
Yes, it is
authorization
clear.
is also you. Till this point, accountability is also you. If something happens to your account, you cannot blame bank. if malicious things happens in your account, you cannot blame bank for this. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you go to bank, okay, and now you have authorized and make this second person who has withdrawn the fund from this thing, you have done or you have made this guy authorized as or a second account barrier or second account holder for you, your bank, correct? This is where the accountability is between Anil and the second person. Okay. Now, in this case, even if the transaction happens legitimate or malicious, the accountability is of both people. Because this authorization to handle the account is not within nodal, what do you say, the bank or whatever is the case. So accountability is always, assigned with the authorization who has given the authorization and approval. Okay. Similarly, in any organization, let's say for example, it happens we are working in a security operations center. There's a guy who is a manager and whose responsibility is to conduct a VAPT exercise and initiate a patch management cycle. Now, if this guy is not available for patch management, somebody, or it happens, the manager says, buddy, I'm not feeling well. Can you just take, I was supposed to patch these two servers. Can you please look into it and patch it? Okay. The second guy says, second manager says, no problem, give me the credential, I'll do it for you. Now, in this case, the authorization is passed, the credentials are passed. But having said that, if something goes wrong, the manager one is responsible and accountable because the authorization or approval has not been taken for transferring the responsibility. Getting the point?
Yeah, yes, sir, perfectly. Getting your point. The concern is that how do we ensure that accountability is going to be ensured with the authorization transfer, right? Because say what happens sometimes there is no intention of say the temporary guy who is having access of authorization, right, for temporary period, right? Maybe unknowingly or knowingly, we are not bothered about the intentions, but knowingly or unknowingly, that something has happened.
Okay.
In that case, for organization to running an operation, the second guy will not or will never take a authorization in future.
Understood. So see.
So how do we link that properly or ensuring that okay authorization transferred with proper accountability protection? How can we do that? Is there any process or something documentation or something? At least up to some action we should have some protection.
So Anilji, absolutely. As long as technology is concerned, that can be taken control with beam solutions and all. So let's say, for example, if somebody wants to access something, he does not have that kind of approval, you can still have PIM solutions in place, which will, to a certain level, stop it. Okay.
Sir, sorry, sir, which solution actually your voice break?
It's a
Which
PIM
solution?
solution. PIM solution.
Okay,
Privileged
PIM.
identity management.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay. So
Please
we
go
have
ahead.
identity access management, we have, right? So similarly, we have PIM solutions, which are only ensured for privileged access. Okay. So when you integrate privileged with identity, I think that can help you to a certain extent to restrict the unauthorized approval or credential-based transfer of the work. Yes, Rohit, I think you have some questions. Anil, if that is sorted out, you can drop your hands down.
Yeah,
Sir,
sure.
Thank
sir,
you.
I was not able to hear you while you explained the bank example. Can you explain it once more? The bank example you said.
Okay, so the bank example was something which is very specific to what Anil had asked to it. Let, for example, it happens, right? When we have our debit card with us, sometimes we are not able to go to bank to withdraw money, right? So what we do is we give our friend our debit card and PIN number of the debit card. On our behalf, he or she goes to bank and withdraws the cash, right? So here what happened is we have transferred authentication to a friend, correct? But whatever happens, if that friend comes to us, gives me my money or runs away with the money, I am the person who's accountable for it. Correct? Now, but in the same case where I have given access to, or I have authorized this individual or friend of mine to be my partner account holder or something like that, and then when this person or entity does something, just because I have the taken approval and have followed the right authorization process, if something happens to my bank account, I will not be responsible. Just because the authorization is with the second individual also, he will also be kept accountable and responsible for the operations. Okay,
So
so that was,
both responsible.
sorry?
Both will be responsible in this case.
Correct. So that's what. So the question from Anil was, who will be and how will we set the accountability for it? Okay.
So if it's a case of combined account, so both will be, if I'm will say between those.
Correct. Accountability remains of both of them to protect it.
Okay.
So yeah, so we jumped on from CIA value to again, I'm so sorry. Akshay, can you just confirm me once again if my voice is clear? Because there are participants who are complaining about the voice.
Sir, actually, in between it is a echoing little bit. So maybe I suppose you're using your a hands-free or a AirPods or like this. So that is why I think it is echoing. You're away from the system. But it
Actually,
is audible. It is not like that. It is not audible. It is audible.
I'm so sorry for this because I'm actually sitting in a environment which does not have echo normally.
Yeah. Maybe you're sitting in a closed environment. That is why it is like I don't know. It's not. It is 100. It is not 100% okay, but it is okay. I mean, it is audible. I am unable to understand if any other participant is not able to hear sir properly. Please inform. He will take corrective measures.
So
Can we continue? Is it okay for all the participants?
Yes, sir.
so I'm just trying to log in from my iPad just to sure, if the voice is clear. So just give me 1 minute. Can you confirm if my voice is clear now?
It is better, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, better.
Okay, understood. So now couple of things that I want to quickly understand again from you is, what is vulnerability?
Yes. Weakness in network.
Weakness into?
Network or process.
Network for network security.
Okay.
And
Okay. What is risk?
risk chances of taking in chances of trap due to this vulnerability, or chances of hacking due to this vulnerability, maybe like that.
See, whatever, Anil, please understand. Cybersecurity, if you try to understand or, you will try to stick to the principles, definitions of it, it will be
Yes, sir.
kind of, boring, and it will be kind of, clumsy. Okay. Put cybersecurity into your real life. Okay. And now let's take a classic example. You have to live the cybersecurity life. Okay. Take a classic example. You, I mean, it's not just to Anil, everyone is. If you take out your motorcycle, okay, your bike, and you have not worn the helmet, what is the vulnerability here?
You can meet with an accident.
Okay. Who else?
You have to pay some fine.
Chalan.
Okay.
You
I
are
mean,
prone to head
the
injury.
incur will be more if you meet with an accident because
The chances of chalan by police.
Okay. Now, sit down. I mean, see, this is what I always say. Now, please understand this. You said that what is a vulnerability? Vulnerability is a loophole, correct? So when somebody is not wearing the helmet, what is that loophole? Or what is vulnerable?
The
his
thing
life.
here is that like we may anytime meet with an accident whenever we are on road, but in this case, like if we meet with an accident, then we might end up like
There are a lot
getting
of
badly
people,
injured or losing the life.
right, Nimish?
So
See, the
in that
point is,
case,
Nimish,
vulnerable is our head.
absolutely. Who was it?
Sir, Samsundar Chand from DVC.
Fantastic, Shyam Sundar. The vulnerability is not wearing the helmet, and the vulnerable asset is your head. Or if you are worried about challan, vulnerable asset is your pocket, from where you will pay the challan, right? The chances of you meeting with an accident is a threat. Okay. The chances of you ending up in paying challan is a threat. Okay. Understood the difference between vulnerability and threat?
Yes.
Good. Now, tell me, if you said yes, what is the risk? Anyone?
All these three things are risk.
No, sir.
Uh,
Vulnerability
head
is always
injury.
different, threat is always different, and risk is always different.
Risk is the probability that a vulnerability can be exploited.
Fantastic.
Sir, here in this example, if we'll take the risk is the means accident and losing the life means you can say the risk.
Fantastic. Absolutely, that's correct. Okay. So what we have to do is similarly, whenever we are talking about cybersecurity, as we said, it talks about protecting individual, that is people, process, and technology. We have to apply these principles in our own life. Vulnerability is nothing but a loophole or a weakness into system. Okay. What is threat? Threat is probability of exploitation or the chances of exploitation. What is risk? Risk is the final value. If the exploitation happens, what is the loss that individual or company has to bear? In simple terms, these are the vulnerabilities, threats, and risks. Clear? The difference is clear now? So prolonged silence, I'll take it as yes. Still, if it is not clear, you can raise your hand. Done. So now, in order to start the risk assessment, what we have to understand is what is a risk. So and again, whenever you may be working in a cybersecurity department, whether you are working as a cybersecurity professional, you are working as a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, the responsibilities differs and varies, and every individual is contributing towards ensuring the business is running smoothly. That is the objective and contribution of cybersecurity to the business. Right? Now, in order to assess the risk is applicable equally to all the three values, which is people, process, technology. Okay. Now, in the course of this action or in the course of this particular session, we'll stick ourselves more to technology perspective. Okay. So now, when we talk about identifying a risk. Okay. What do you think has to be the first step? Let's say, for example, you are managing the IT infrastructure of a company. Okay. What is that you will try to find out first? Or what is that you would want to protect first?
So we find out where is the loopholes in the system.
Okay. Who else?
And also trying to first where the main data or
Who else?
We need to prioritize which is high risk and which is low risk.
Absolutely. So we have to understand, first thing is, we need to define our assets. Okay. So what is, see, I'll give you an example. In every organization, there are two types of portal. One is internet portal for customers and doing business publicly. And then there are intranet portals, correct? The portals which will be used only for providing information or services to the employees. Okay. Now, as per you, are these both systems equally critical? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, right? Why no? So again, in order to come to the actual criticality of the asset, what we have to understand is the CIA value, and that is the reason why I have been, emphasizing, and that is one of the reasons why we have discussed CIA, PPT, and all those stuff in length and breadth. Because unless and until we are very clear about this, we will not be able to do a risk assessment by our own self. Okay. So when you talk about risk, the first thing that comes into mind is what is this particular vulnerability or what is that particular risk is impacting on. Okay. Now let's say, take a classic example. For a business, a housekeeping staff is as critical as CEO of the company? No, right? That is one of the reasons why the housekeeping staff will not have that kind of security as compared to the CEO, right? Because the CEO's CIA value is far more critical than the housekeeping staff CIA value. The conflict comes is for business, obviously when we are doing business, for CEO or the business owners, out of these three CIA value, what as per your opinion is most critical pillar? It is C, I, A, or A? See, these are the real scale word scenarios which you'll come up with when you start doing risk assessment or audits for your organization. Okay. There are all theoretical things, but you have to understand that when you actually enter into risk assessment mode, there are things which are very much different. And that is one of the reasons why, if you look at ISO standard, ISO 27001, the chapter 1 to 4 talks only about management commitment, responsibilities, and all those stuff. The rest 8, 9 chapters, they are based on all controls, technical, this stuff, jargons. Now, why 1 to 4 is, or rather 4 chapters are on management responsibilities, the driving factor of ISO, is because business owners, they only rely majorly on a part of the CIA value, which is availability, right? Because CEO would always want the business to grow. And in order to ensure that business is growing, What they want is my all assets has to be available, be it people, process, or technology. Correct? The CEO does not care about whether they are protected, whether the confidentiality is maintained, whether the integrity is maintained. What I want is they should be available all the time. Yes or no? Right? I mean, if you are one of the founders, CEOs, or owner of the business, you will always want. I don't care about how the CIA is maintained. I only want you to ensure that my systems are available for all the people. Somebody has raised hand. I do not know why this is not showing me here. Did somebody raise hand? Okay.
Sir, your slide is not moving now.
No, it is as it is because we have not yet covered the points here. Okay. Right. So what happens is we always try to define the contributors to the risk. Okay. Now, when we say contributors to risk, what are the key contributors to risk? What are things that can contribute to risk? First and foremost is a vulnerability, presence of a vulnerability that will majorly impact the availability of system if it is exploited. So vulnerability loophole is something which will contribute to creating risk from that perspective. Okay. Now, when you talk, have you covered your vulnerability assessment part of it? Topic?
Yes.
Your vulnerability assessment is done? Okay. So let's say if you want to prioritize the vulnerability, what are the mechanism in which you prioritize the vulnerability? How you defined criticality to vulnerabilities? Okay, let me ask you the question in a different way. You have run a NIST scan on a system. Okay. Now NIST has given you a SQL injection. Okay. NIST has reported a SQL injection in your system. Now, will you take that SQL injection and report it as a high vulnerability in your report? Or you will do some due diligence before reporting it to high?
We will first do due diligence based on what it is impacting.
Okay, so that is absolutely right. So what exactly are the contributing factors, whether you will, or on which you will decide the criticality of the issue or risk or vulnerability?
So level of severity.
So that is exactly what we have to define. What is the severity? How will we define severity
And
as low, medium, high?
possibility of it occurring also, sir.
Possibility of occurrence. Okay. Who else wants to answer? Nimish?
The severity, I think, like what it is impacting, like if I have like say 10, 15 files in my system, few are more important, few are less important, or say I have an operation system, if it is not hampering my operations, maybe impacting some other things. So based on that, like define it.
Okay. Who else want to answer? This is very important because you have to understand this.
Severity, I think severity is what is the impact on business?
So it's like critical, which are critical, high, low, medium, kind of identify the assets.
Sir, Anil here. In other words, we can say severity is the you can say status of say CIA, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability after the incident. So we have to preserve that. We have to protect that CIA.
Absolutely right. See, again, just because I do not know what is the, I think most of us come from a house organization and we are working with them. But having said that, we have to understand that severity is derived. Let's say, for example, I'll give you this way. Now, there is one system or this application on which you have identified the SQL injection is a standalone system. It is not connected to any part of the internet or network in a company. Okay. For this, if you put the severity of SQL injection as critical, the client will come and your manager will fire you. Wherein, if you have identified SQL injection in a business and banking application, that has to be reported critical. So in both the cases, the vulnerability remains the same. It remains SQL injection itself. But the problem is, in one case, it becomes medium threat. Other case, it becomes a critical threat. So in order to derive the actual severity of risk or severity of vulnerability, there are parameters involved. Okay. So the first parameter is impact. Okay. Now, what is the impact of this vulnerability? Or what is the impact of this risk? So let's say, for example, same thing, SQL injection. The impact is we are going to be, or if this vulnerability is exploited, we will lose all the data which is stored in database of the system. Okay. So impact is what? Critical. Now take pen and paper. And this all these categorization happens from 0 to 9 benchmarks. Some people take it from, some organization want to take it from 0 to 9, like NIST and all, and some of the organizations want to take it from 0 to 5 or 1 to 5. Okay, 0 to 4 or 1 to 5. Now let's say in this case, so the impact in both the assets, one critical asset, one non-critical asset. So for critical asset also, the impact of the vulnerability is 9. On non-critical application also, the impact of the vulnerability is 9. In both the cases, it's 9. Done. Second parameter which comes is likelihood. That means if this vulnerability is exploited, what is
Your
the
slide is not moving.
Yes, I mean, so this is what it is. I mean, we are trying to understand the risk, the contributors of risk.
Okay.
Okay. So when you say the contributors to risk is, one is we have to evaluate and understand the impact of the vulnerability. Okay. Impact is, it is very critical. So in both ways, the severity remains 9 and 9. Okay. Second pattern is the likelihood. When you say likelihood, when this particular vulnerability is exploited, okay, what are the chances that it will impact the other systems or other network components? So for critical asset, it becomes 9 because it is connected to all other systems. But for this non-critical asset, it becomes 1 because this system is now standalone system. Yes. So it's just one machine which will get impacted with this. Third is, can anyone tell me third? So we have impact, we have likelihood. Third is ease of exploitation. Okay. So now when you say ease of exploitation means how difficult or easy it is to exploit the vulnerability. Not just it's because SQL injection, it needs a moderate kind of expertise to exploit it. So we'll count it as 5. Okay. So both the systems, the kind of impact will become, or the ease of exploitation will become 5, 5. Now add it up. For critical system, the total CIA value or total severity value which becomes is 9 plus 1 plus 5. It is 15. Okay. Wherein for non-critical system, it becomes, for critical system, it becomes 9 plus 9 plus 5. Okay. It becomes 23. Wherein for non-critical asset, it becomes 9 plus 1 plus 5. Okay. It becomes 15. Now 15 divided by 3, because we have taken 3 parameters on an average, right? So now, when we talk about, let me just try to share if it is possible here. So can you see my whiteboard here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So now, this is critical asset, okay, and this is non-critical asset. So for, let's say, SQL injection, we found SQL injection here. So the impact for critical asset was 9. For non-critical asset, it was 9. Likelihood for this critical asset, it was 9. For non-critical asset, just because it was a standalone system, it became 1. Correct? And last was ease of exploitation. Okay. For non-critical asset, it was 5. For critical asset, it was 5. Non-critical asset, it was also 5, because the level of information or level of knowledge required to exploit the vulnerability will not be different. So here it became 23. Here it became 15. Now these are 3 components. So we'll divide it by 3. Okay. Now what happens is, it became 7.9 something. Okay. And here it became 5. Right. So as per the CVSS score, common vulnerability scoring system, which called, I'm sure that you might have covered this. CVSS score that is given. So what we have considered was 0 to 9, correct? So out of the 0 to 9, 0 to 2, if any severity falls between 0 to 2, it is low. 3 to 5, it is medium. 6 to 8, it is high. 9, and it is, if it is 9, it is critical. Now, see this. Just because now you have derived the actual severity score, you will assign it a category. Okay. This is the category it falls, right? So for critical asset, it becomes high. Okay. But for a non-critical asset, it becomes medium. So this is how, when you are trying to address a risk, you will assign the severity to that risk. You will not just go in blindly, start patching it up. Now, because you have reached to a severity score, now what you'll do is you'll reach out to asset register. So in your RA, risk assessment, the first thing that you want to create is a asset register, which will list down all your information assets. Please remember, most of the cases, you will find the reference that risk register lists down all the assets. It is not the practical way of doing a risk assessment. The risk assessment will only list down all the information assets. Now, can anyone tell me what is the difference between asset and information asset? Okay, so take a classic example, or rather, it's not an example, it's a practical approach that any data or any asset involved in storing, transmitting, or processing information. Okay. Any asset which is either storing, transmitting, or processing information, they need to be a part of your RA or asset register. Okay. So now once you define all the assets in your asset register, the next important thing is to define them CIA value. Okay. Now we have already seen this CIA value, why it is required. It is again required to provide you the right set of severity to an asset. Now, when we define the CIA value and when we categorize the CIA value for an asset, we follow the same methodology. Okay, how do you define CIA value? So let's say it's an server which is consider this asset A. Asset A is nothing but an application server. Okay, which is providing services to the customer. Okay. Now for this particular application server, from 0 to 5, what would be the severity or confidentiality value for this? Just because it's a end server having a public access, people are doing transaction based on this server, so the confidentiality is 5. Okay. As I said, the integrity of the server is also 5. The availability is also 5. Okay. Now, take another example. Server B. Okay. Now, this server B is a file server. Okay. This file server is storing all the publicly available files. Okay. It considers as a repository of all public accessible PDFs, documents, and all the stuff. Now, can someone help me defining the CIA value for this? What would be the C value for this server?
Hi, sir.
One, sir.
Same, we'll follow the same process here. You raise a hand and then speak, please. And Akshay, you have to help me here because I'm not able to see the hands. Yes, Nimish, please go ahead.
Sure. It will be high, like 8 or 9, because it is
No, we
storing
have 0
critical
to
files.
5.
Okay, sorry. So 5.
Okay, Nimish says 5. What else? Who else?
Sir, 1, sir.
Who is saying 1?
Sir, Samsung Chand from DBC. Because this is available
Sir,
to
since it's
also.
not, since it's storing publicly available files, the confidentiality will be very lower. Right.
Fantastic. So the confidentiality of this server will be very low because it's storing the files. It's a file server. It has nothing to protect, right? So confidentiality becomes 1. What is the integrity?
Integrity of the documents. We'll be concerned about integrity of the documents here, or what?
I don't know.
Integrity of this document is value 5 because the value is never gonna change or altered because of its public.
Fantastic, Parag.
Thank you.
The integrity, because this is a file server, though it is having or holding publicly available information about the company, the criticality or the severity of its integrity always remains high because nothing should be changed. Correct? The values in the file should not change. So integrity remains 5. And what about availability?
Sir, 4.
Availability is also a major concern, so it shall be on the higher side, sir.
Okay, so
This is
this
publicly available
availability.
files.
Yes.
So this is publicly available files. So these files should not be much critical for the company running. So here availability should be not 5, less than 5, 3 or 4.
Yeah, it should be moderate.
Absolutely correct. So since the availability of the server is very much important, but it is nothing that sort of impact, wherein the business will shut down. Okay, it will have impact, if the server goes down or the information is not available, it will have impact on brand. People will say, oh, file is not available, so, but it will not impact business, that, business will not be available, correct? So the impact is kind of moderate for availability. So the entire availability will give it 3. Okay. Now look at the same values, same sort of calculation that we did here. Let's do it here. So your severity assigned to asset A is 5 plus 5 plus 5. Okay. And your severity assigned to asset B is 5 plus 1 plus 3. It becomes 15. It becomes 9. So 15 divided by 3, it becomes 5. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. So what happens is server B becomes medium critical server, wherein server A becomes high critical server or asset. Correct? Now, when you find out, and it's a very principal formula, it's a very simple formula, that risk equals the severity of the asset plus the risk value divided by 2. So what eventually will happen is, in our case, the severity of the server was 5 and the total severity value was 7.9. This becomes percent by 2, it becomes approximately 7, right? So when you say 7, as per our CVSS value, anything which falls between 7 is high critical, correct? So when you're fixing and everything that we are doing here, it is in order to start the patch or mitigation process. So whenever a vulnerability along with the asset register is high, we'll immediately start patching with those systems first for which the severity or overall risk has come to a high extent. Clear, everyone? Understood how to derive risk associated with the asset?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Great.
सर ये रिस्क वैल्यू कहाँ से लाया सर आपने?
Fantastic. अब जिसने जिसने कहा yes, whoever has said yes, please explain. Who asked this question, please? And it is a test, so that people should not say yes. Thanks, Rohit.
Yes, sir. 7.9, I don't get it.
No, agreed. So who will explain it to Rohit? See, this way we can always.
First step, this would be 7.66.
Sorry, come again.
This comes from the first table, and this would be 7.66, 23 by 3. That's why I think here there will be a confusion.
That's okay. I mean, it is 7 point something, right? So even if it is 7 point something, it still falls under the category of medium, high risk. So see, the reason why I'm telling you, well, obviously, I'm not skipping it. I want somebody to explain it to Rohit again. Is, see, you ran NIST scan, right? You have seen NIST scan so far? Have you done vulnerability assessment? Vulnerability assessment topic is not done, Akshay, yet?
It is done, sir. No, VAPT has been covered in basics by our faculty members. Uh, I don't know how many of them have done hands-on on the VA part.
No, so I'm asking about the topic has been covered.
Yeah, it has been covered. Basics have been covered.
Okay, fantastic.
Detail is
So
yet
now,
to be there. There are some details which are scheduled for the next coming sessions, but basic they have covered.
no, that's fine. So see, when you do a vulnerability assessment, which tool was explained to you, or any which ways? Let me just derive it for you. So I'm talking about, let's say, if you conducted a vulnerability assessment exercise, you will use Rapid7 or Nessus. Nessus is, these two are the best available software to use, or tools to use, do for vulnerability assessment. Now, whenever you run a kind of assessment, the report is generated. Okay, we don't call them as a report. These are called as results. Okay. Now, these results, they need analysis. You cannot just simply draw or fetch the results and compile it into a report and send it to the client. This is a tool which has not been allocated any kind of information about our asset register. Okay, so just because they do not have asset registered embedded with these tools, they can give you the severity score only based on the vulnerability, not based on the asset register, right? Now, when you move up ladder into the organization, this VA is referred as, or this VA has been practiced as a principle of VM, which is called as vulnerability management. Now, when you do vulnerability management, now these tools come with a solution wherein you will provide all this kind of asset register, the CIO values and everything into the system, so that the final report which comes is, these tools already to an extent categorize the severity score and give it to you based on asset register. Okay, so this is what is something which is even important when you are doing a vulnerability management exercise. Okay, so now I'll just move on to the presentation. So I'll just share my screen. Just 1 second. Okay, so now coming back to same thing, and please just confirm if you're able to see my notepad as well as the presentation, or it's just one thing visible.
Only notepad.
Only notepad is visible.
Only notepad is visible. Okay, let me just try again. So I have to stop the notepad in order to make the presentation visible. So is the presentation visible now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So this
No, sir.
screen shown from my end.
Yeah.
Yes, now it is visible.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
So now we understood what is the risk. We understood how the risk is calculated. We understood, what is asset register, how to define CIA values. But as I told you, this is what we do practically. Okay, and that is one of the reasons why I did not wanted to run through presentation. I wanted you to focus on what I'm saying and what I'm telling you. Now, what is risk assessment? Risk assessment is nothing but a systematic process of identifying, evaluating, and prioritizing the potential risk. This is exactly what we already did. Yes or no? what we did is we identified the value. Sorry, we identified the risk. In our case, we have identified SQL injection as a risk. Correct? Next is what we did is we evaluated. We evaluated the risk. What is the impact? What is the likelihood and all the stuff. Correct? Then what we did was we prioritized the risk. How did we prioritize the risk? We prioritize the risk based on asset register, based on the CIA value, based on the impact, likelihood, and all the stuff, right? So when you do all these kind of things, it becomes your RA, which is called as risk assessment. Okay. So, I know that, people are saying that presentation is not moving enough. The reason was I wanted to practically explain it to you rather than moving on to the presentation. Now, when we talk about risk assessment, we have to understand why an organization puts a lot of money and effort to identify risk. Okay. These are the process of in entirety for doing a risk assessment. The first thing, the identification of risk. In our case, what do you say? SQL injection. Okay. Or the individual who's going out on a bike without a helmet. We identified the risk. What we did next was analyzing the risk. That was the CBSS score that we did. Okay. Risk analysis means identifying what is the impact, what is the severity, how is going to be impacting the life cycle of the business and all the stuff. Risk evaluation. Risk evaluation, just like we have, used asset register values and all those stuff to identify how the risk is going to be impacting overall to a particular asset, which is a high critical nature. Next is risk treatment. Now, what is risk treatment? Anyone? Obviously, now you can tell me what is risk treatment. Anyone would want to answer it?
Blocking of ports, IPs.
Okay. Anybody else?
But like whatever risk we identify, just mitigating those or taking actions in the direction so that they are mitigated.
Okay.
Sir, Parag here. Sir, it is like implementing security controls, policies, procedures to mitigate the.
No, absolutely. What you're saying is absolutely fine. My question is, what is actually what do you mean by risk treatment? Okay, you're saying patching. Okay, is only the patching part of treatment? Okay, so let me
So
tell you this way.
implementing specific action strategy.
Correct. Maybe. Let me give you this example. And
Not exactly.
It's a real world example. Okay. Let's say, for example, you are working in an organization wherein you have got 100 Windows 7 machines. Okay. 100 machines which are working on Windows 7. Now, the cybersecurity analyst came and said that it's a high critical problem. Now you have to migrate to Windows 10 because Windows 7 is end of life product. One Windows 10 license comes in 11,000 rupees. 100 systems will cost you 11 lakhs rupees to completely, mitigate the risk. Now your cybersecurity budget itself is of 5 lakh rupees. What will you do? You'll still go ahead and patch it? Or in this case, your entire business profitability is, let's say, 20 lakh rupees. What will you do? You'll still go ahead and patch the vulnerability? Is it possible for you?
No, sir.
Then you can't say in report that, no, I'll do not do anything and I'll continue doing my business, because that's a non-compliance. And in India, if there is a vulnerability identified by certain or the regulatory bodies, what is the penalty? Anyone?
Sir, Europe, I think it is 4% of the revenue. In India, not sure, sir.
It is 4 crores. Okay. The penalty can be up to 4 crore every quarter. That means they will come, if they are identified, they will put a penalty of 4 crore rupees, up to 4 crore rupees. And then you have to patch it within a quarter, 90 days. If you don't, they will again identify and put the penalty again. But now we are stuck. We have to take a decision. So the mitigation or patching that risk is just one part of risk treatment. So how do you do your risk treatment? One is mitigating that risk. That means patching the risk. What are another things? So now you'll be wondering, right? What else can be done with the risk? Second is you can accept the risk and move on. Obviously, risk acceptance only work with low level impact. Okay? In our case, it will not work. The risk can never work, or just because it's a Windows 7 end of system machines, it has got a high severity rating, critical rather. You cannot just accept the risk. You can always accept the risk in terms of what do you say? Vulnerabilities or risk which are uh, low severity in nature. Again, I'll just switch my free form. Okay. So now, what are the risk treatment strategies? One is mitigation. Second is acceptance. What could be third?
Terminate.
Oh, employee.
No, sir. The asset which has the vulnerability.
Third is the transfer of risk.
Avoidance.
Correct. So third is you transfer the risk. How do you transfer the risk?
We give a certain domain to third party.
Outsourcing.
Correct. We give these assets in the management of third party, or we take the insurance for these assets, right? So what eventually happens is when you outsource the management of these assets to third party, it becomes their liability to protect the assets, right? By third party, it does not. The third party would be that no wise if they accept this kind of challenges with us. When you say outsourcing, it does not mean that you outsource the risk. What you do is you bring third-party tools and technologies into the account. For example, in this case, can you tell me how will you transfer the risk? Wherein this is a very practical scenario, right? Let's say you are part of an organization. Tomorrow, your CISO comes up and says, Nimish or Anil, come, our auditor have found out that we have got 100 systems which are running on Windows 7. Now tell me what to do. So when you say transfer the risk to third party, what will you do? I mean, you cannot reach to Alok Tripathi and say, let's Alok come into system. We are signing a contract. I'll pay you, let's say 5 lakh rupees a month. You take care of our this issue. What will I do with that? I can't do. I mean, I cannot give you something which will help your auditor, which will, satisfy your auditing needs, right? So what is that transfer you're doing? So what you're doing is you are hiring a third party software, in this case, HIDS, HIPS, system integrity, HIPS, system integrity verifiers. You will buy the licensed tools and deploy on Windows 7 so that if somebody is trying to hack into Windows 7, the hacking is not done. Or somebody is trying to do a SQL injection in our case, it will not happen. Because what you have done is you have bought these licenses, and now these licenses comes with SLA, saying that they'll protect your assets and all this stuff. In this case, if they do not protect your assets, you have the liability of suing them or whatever it is. Right? So here what you do is you have transferred the risk to a third party by implementing technologies with them. Other thing is insurance. You can take insurance on your systems in case, in the event, if there is a business loss, it will be covered by the insurance. Okay. Now, wherever these three is not possible, the last one which comes is avoidance, which somebody has said very well, is will eliminate the system itself. Will eliminate the project. Let's say, for example, it's very common sense that I said, the entire project, which is, comprised of these 100 computers. So if you remember it correctly, what I said was the total value of this project itself is 20 lakh rupees, let's say, for example, correct? Now these 100 computers were contributing to these 20 lakh of business, out of which it is demanding 11 lakhs as a revenue investment for me, correct? So even if I do it, I will be left out with 9 lakh rupees to run the entire operation for this project. So this will be a loss-making project. But having said that, it will not just be a loss-making project, it will be an impact on brand reputation, right? So let's do one thing, let's kill the project itself. We do not want this project, shut down the project. This is what is called as elimination of avoidance, right? Any questions, any doubt till this point?
Sir, Nimish, if I said one doubt here, like suppose a certain company does not comply with a few cybersecurity norms. So why is it that the government put penalty, the penalty on that company? So like it
So
is
it
their
is,
internal matter. Like if something goes wrong, they will be at loss. So like why do they pay penalty to the company? So why is it needed?
that's a very good question, Nimish. And you have to understand. So, just one second. So I'm not sure whether you have heard this or not. On 13th of October 2020, there was a complete 2 hours of blackout in Mumbai, right? The entire operation from electrical system perspective, it was down in Mumbai. Mumbai has never witnessed 2 hours of blackout. Now, when the investigation happened, we did kind of root cause analysis. We called RCM. So we identified that there was a malware, there was a zero-day exploit done, implemented long back since 2017, which was, installed on one of these SCADA systems that they have. And during the COVID, just because the hackers or the creators of the zero-day was, had nothing to do in COVID, they tried to show and they thought of showing the muscle power. And what they did is they initiated the zero-day attack. Okay, that caused 2 hours of blackout. You know how it was stopped?
The 0 day can only be stopped by the initiator.
Absolutely. It was stopped because they stopped it. We couldn't do. Okay. So no, it's not like zero day can only be stopped by the attacker. There are mechanisms in which you can stop the zero day or impact at least. The attack will keep on happening, but you can mitigate or put a layer so that the attack can be avoided or impact can be avoided. So there are two ways, two things, right? One, you're stopping the attack. Second is you're stopping the impact of the attack. Right? So the attack was stopped after two hours, and they have stopped it. It was a clear-cut indication on showing the muscle power of cyber. So we call them as a cyber warfare. So warfare one, so World War I was on bullets and ammunition. World War II was bullets and ammunition. World War III, though it is not declared, we have seen it biological warfare. Right? So wherein COVID was used as a tool to create panic and loss of life. Now we are moving towards cyber warfare. When we talk about cyber warfare, it is on a country or in a cross-border level, it is happening on a daily basis. I mean, people or hackers from across the countries or across the border, they are keep penetrating other countries and all. But on a larger perspective, national-wise, country-wise, nobody has declared anything. Correct? Sorry.
So we have a question from Mr. Rohit.
Yes, I think Rohit's question
Yes,
I'm
sir.
trying to respond. Yes, actually, I'm aware. So I'm actually responding to Rohit only. Or
Okay, got it.
Nimish.
Got it. Got it.
So
Slightly
the
noise
question
is coming.
is, yeah. So somebody asked the question why it is, why government agencies put penalty onto us, right? So now the point is, see, ONGC can come and say that, boss, it was my flaw, my system was problem, it had a vulnerability. Why you bother? Problem is, you are a company but providing service to the public. Correct? If you are impacted, public is also impacted. Right? Else, if you have your standalone system, you have created server only for providing services to you, the government and nodal agencies will not even come and bother about it. But if you are providing services to customer, you cannot say that vulnerability is my responsibility. Your system can cause multiple impact onto multiple infrastructure. Like for example, in case of MLA, multi-level attacks, right? In case of multi-level attacks, one system is compromised, thus resulting in compromise of multiple systems which are beyond their control or beyond their accessibility, but connected to the system. Now, if one of the bank, let's say for example, RBL Bank or HDFC Bank, they are having a vulnerability. So you may say that okay, it's a HDFC problem, they have a vulnerability. No, at the back end they are connected to nodal agencies, right? Now, if your system can contribute to compromise of another system of nodal agencies, then that will have an impact to all the banks across the country or globe, right? So that is one of the reasons why it is important to ensure that your system is free of flaw. Okay, that's why regulatory bodies and compliance bodies, they keep track of all these things. And if you do not fall within the purview or within the norms set by them, they will put a penalty on you. This was a question from Nimish, I think, right?
Right, sir. Understood, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Rohit, please. Yes,
Sir,
please.
in this avoidance case, the example you took, the out of 20 lakh, 11 lakh was spent for the replacement of PCs of taking new license. The 9 lakh was still there as a profit. So why did we drop the project?
Very good question, Rohit. So see, you have these 100 computers in the system, right? Now this project cost was 20 lakh rupees. Now every project has their operational cost also, no?
Yes, sir.
There will be employees also. There have been 100 computers. That means at least 100 people would have been using it, right?
But we
What was
said
their
20
salaries?
lakh profit, sir. We said 20 lakh profit. So
I said the
I
project
think
cost, not profit.
okay.
Okay. So even if there is a profitability of 20 lakh rupees, correct? Even if you want to generate business, and again, 9 lakh rupees, if you consider that profit is coming, what if in the next cycle, after a quarter after we pass this vulnerability, new things come up. Maybe your Windows Server 2008 got expired. So that's how avoidance is the last option wherein you want to shut down the complete operation based on feasibility to run it. Okay, it's completely the business call. You might have heard, right? You might have heard companies, start laying off people, correct? Because there was a process which shut down. That was avoidance, maybe due to financial liabilities and. But what eventually they have done is they have run a risk assessment whether this process is good enough in terms of running or is it a risk-taking project. If that's a risk-taking project, they call that project off and let all the employees go off. That's how the risk assessment, not from technology, but a financial perspective, it happens. Yes, Parag, please go ahead.
Sir, my question is continuing to the previous one that as Microsoft has already said Windows 7 patch, then we today or tomorrow we have to update our entire system. Then why it's evidence? It is must. It's not point to avoid that point.
Absolutely.
Same case Windows Server.
Correct.
You have to spend such money. Then yes, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely, Parag. That is exactly what I said. See, avoidance is the last tool that you have. Let's take this example. Same way, if this project cost was 200 crores, okay? Now, if the project cost was 200 crores, obviously what you'll do is you'll mitigate the issue. Correct?
Right, sir.
Absolutely. So that's a business decision that we have to take based on our risk treatment or risk valuation. If we have got enough money to put, we'll mitigate the risk. If the risk is of low level or low threat, we'll accept the risk. That is one of the reasons why mostly none of the organizations, they focus on patching the low severity vulnerabilities. Okay? Most of the consulting companies that you see, they will only report medium, high, and critical vulnerabilities. Low level vulnerabilities, it's okay if you can accept it. Next is transfer, and last is avoidance. Now, I am nowhere saying that this is the same breadcrumb. No? But the first thing that you would always want to do to a vulnerability or a risk is to mitigate this. All right? Even if it is a low level threat. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So I'll just switch back to my presentation. Stop it here. So in our slide, it says presentation is visible to you?
Yes, sir.
You all can see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good, good, good. Now, the next, so this slide, we have said identify risk, analyze the risk, evaluate the risk, treat the risk. What is missing? Is there anything
Acceptance.
missing?
Or acceptance.
So that was part of the treatment plan, acceptance or avoidance. What is missing?
Review and monitoring sub risk assessment.
Sorry?
Review and continuous monitoring above points.
Okay. Now, when you say this is absolutely correct, Parag. Review and monitoring. So, what do you mean by reviewing and monitoring, and why it is important? Anyone? Why reviewing your risk or why reviewing the your entire risk cycle is important?
Sir, whatever treatment that we have done, gone through, it is working properly or not. That is only identified by the monitoring.
Now, let's say, for example, we have patched the vulnerabilities or we have patched the risk. What to monitor?
Sir, I have a concern. 10 minutes left, but we are on slide 4 by 13. So not everybody will be able to stay till late. Just a concern.
Absolutely, Soundar. Soundar, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Soundar, see, please don't go by number of slides that we have. Okay. My objective is you should learn as much as possible. I will be your instructor on 20th also. I'll be your instructor for other days as well. Okay. My objective is whatever I'm telling you, you should adapt it. Okay. Don't worry about it.
Okay, sir. One more concern, sir. In the upcoming classes, if you take any more, if you can elaborate more with the slides, it will be more engaging, sir.
If you wish to have presentation based discussion, I can absolutely consider. My only submission remains.
Yeah, like a hybrid, you can try, sir. Like a hybrid presentation plus interactive.
Right. So I will try to use less drawing board or whiteboard next time, and I'll use more of these slides. Thanks for
Yeah, even for our later review, it will be much helpful. That is why.
Absolutely, absolutely. I get that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So coming to our, again, when we talk about review and audit or review and monitor the risk, it means that whatever mitigation, we are not monitoring the risk. We are monitoring the mitigations. We are monitoring the treatments that has been done. Why this is important? To ensure that whatever treatment we have done, evaluate the effectiveness of the treatment, not the risk. Okay? So why review and monitoring is important? Review and monitoring is important to ensure that the treatment which we have done to risk is effective or not. Okay, so it's not the risk monitoring; it is majorly the treatment monitoring that we have done. Okay. Now, NIST, we all know it's a very great institution based on United States. So we have got multiple, and we will definitely, only talk about the basics here, because we have left with a bit of time. So NIST, just like other institutions like SANS and all this stuff, we have regularly been receiving, updates, frameworks, protocols, methodologies, to conduct different activities. Like for example, NIST has their own CSF. Now CSF stands for Cybersecurity Framework. Okay. Now, when we talk about any framework, okay, framework consists of two things. One is a implementation guideline. Second is the review principles. Okay, you talk about any process. You talk about ISO 27001. Now, ISO 27001 is not a standard. I'm not sure whether you know this or not. ISO 27001 is an audit guideline. ISO 27002 is an implementation principle. But actually the process is ISO 27000. Okay. So it is always about whenever there's a process, whenever there's a framework, wherever there is a methodology, it is always into two parts. Nobody will tell you this, but then first part is always an implementation guideline. Second one is the review or audit principles or audit methodology. Okay. Similarly, in the NIST. NIST CSF, which is Cybersecurity Framework, consists of 5 core functions. Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Okay. Now, forget about this slide again. In terms of cybersecurity, there are two types of controls. Can you define those two types of controls? One is reactive control. Second is
Proactive control.
proactive control. Very good.
Proactive.
Yes. Now, when you talk about reactive controls or reactive cybersecurity controls, what do you refer to? When somebody says,
Action of
sorry, come again, please. I'm sorry. Please repeat yourself. What's that?
sir, reactive is the action after incident. Mainly correct action.
Correct. So reactive controls are basically the mitigation controls. Okay. Once the attack has already happened, in order to rectify the reoccurrence of the attack or reoccurrence of the risk, you implement what? Reactive controls. Okay. What are proactive controls? Proactive controls are nothing but the controls or mechanisms which you implement to avoid a threat or risk or attack to happen on the organization. Okay. So now, when you talk about NIST framework says, in order to minimize the cyber risk, you have to understand and identify all the risks imposed by your business assets. Now, how do you identify risk? Pretty simple. Do vulnerability assessment, do risk assessment, and all those stuff. Okay? So once you do VA, PT, web application security assessment, risk assessment, business impact analysis, what you do, you try to identify the risk posed by an organization. Now, protection. So once you identify risk, you need to protect the asset. How do you protect? By implementing reactive and proactive security controls. Okay. Third is detect. When you say detect, means the mechanism or create a kind of review mechanism wherein you will proactively identify and respond to the incident which is happening. Okay. Take a classic example. When let's say in organization, there is a network scan which is happening. Okay. Though everything is there, you have SIEM, you have IDS, IPS, you have web application firewall, every security control is implemented. Irrespective of those, still somebody is doing a network scan. What you have to do is you have to identify and respond to that kind of incident. When a network scan happens, it is called as incident. Once you identify or detect that kind of incident, you create a mechanism of responding to it. Okay. Obviously, let's say, for example, in the same case where somebody is doing a network scan, what we'll do is we'll respond to this attack by blocking all these network packets or blocking the IP address, blocking the system in control, blocking the MAC address and all this stuff. So this is kind of responding to that particular incident or event which is happening. Now, what is recover? Recover is something which is very important. Now, this cannot simply be done, or you cannot simply come up with a recovering solution by understanding a threat. What you have to do is you have to perform a RCA for this. What is RCA? RCA stands for root cause analysis. Okay. What is root cause analysis? Root cause analysis tries to identify the basic or the root of the issue which has happened, core concern due to which the incident occurred, the source of the incident, the heuristics of the incident, and then implementing and developing a strategy in case of such incidents further in future.
what would be the restoring and recovery methodology that will be used. Okay. Now take a very classic example in terms of DOS and DDoS attacks. Okay. I'm sure that you know DOS and DDoS. DOS is denial of service attack and DDoS is distributed denial of service attack. Now with your common analysis, let's say this NIST framework, okay, you have done your implemented the NIST framework. Will the security controls that you have implemented for DOS is sufficient to counter against DDoS? Is the basic question. Can anyone respond? Let's say, for example, if you have implemented these security control to mitigate or bypass the issues of denial of service attack, can this control and measures stand still and defend your system against distributed denial of service attack? Yes or no? Nobody wants to respond?
No. Why? Because distributed denial of service requires more of capability than which are there with DOS.
Okay. Thanks, Neeraj. Who else wants to put on a comment? Okay, no worry. So Neeraj, you are partially correct, and that is the reason why I asked this question. Okay. So even to come to that conclusion, you have to do a RCA. Okay. Let's say, for example, the distributed denial, the DOS and the DDoS, both are done on a heuristic match. Okay, that means the anomaly used to launch DOS is actually the anomaly used to launch DDoS. Okay. Now, in the Arbor, which is again a DDoS mitigation solution, if you have implemented control to mitigate this heuristic-based DOS, it will be eliminated because even if it is DDoS which is happening, it is happening from the same heuristic standpoint. That means same kind of protocol anomaly it is using. Now, because you have blocked the protocol anomaly on the Arbor, irrespective it is come from one system or 1,000 system, Arbor will stop it. Okay. But let's say in case of DOS, you have implemented a network attack, network level control you have implemented. Okay, blocking the MAC or whatever it is. That control will not work for DDoS because now the bandwidth attack is happening, wherein the number of IPs or number of systems involved under this kind of attack is too much, too many. So your system will not be through. In order to identify the problem and obviously the recovery solution, it is very important to do a RCA, come up with your recovery plan. Okay? In case of a DOS attack, my recovery plan is this. I'll implement this reactive support. I'll implement this proactive support. Then after the incident has happened, this is how I'll recover my asset which has been impacted. So this way you try to define proactive control, reactive control, and recovery mechanism. Once the framework is established. Till this point, it is clear with everyone? So, Akshay, I just wanted to understand, do we have a hard stop at 8? It's, I think, 8 o'clock. So should we stop or how is it?
No, there is no hard stop at 8, but you can extend because today is working day. You can extend for 10-15 minutes, not an issue. If it is okay with the participant, I don't think 15-20 minutes will be an issue with most of the participants.
No, so I'm fine, because anyways, I'm going to take the session on 20th as well. So I can cover a few things here. I think on 20th we have got 4 hours to cover, so we can cover then.
Yeah, you can do like that also. Yeah.
So please raise your hand who wants to continue and participate for another 15 minutes. So, okay, we'll continue for 15 minutes. There are a lot of people who are raising hands. Okay, good. Thanks. So, now next is, for us, now please understand, what, you might have seen less presentation. But eventually, if you understood what I explained it to you, you will find that, and that is one of the reasons I told you. If you understand the mechanism which I explained earlier in terms of identifying and giving the risk severity allocation, irrespective of which standard, irrespective of which framework, irrespective of which methodology, whatever you are using for your organization's perspective, those thumb rules which I explained it to you, it will help you everywhere. Now, even here, when you talk about NIST risk-driven cybersecurity standards, see, the first thing which comes is asset identification and valuation. Okay. Now, what we have done earlier was we have created risk register, asset register. Yes. In our methodology of RA, what was the first step that we did? We did was creating an asset register. Correct. Now, even this NIST, it says what? You have to identify asset and valuate it. What does it mean? You have to identify your asset which you want to protect, all the information asset. Again, see, principally so just because it is directly coming from NIST, I have done asset identification. Again, in asset identification, we do not need to take all the asset. What we need to take is the information assets. So asset identification is important, and then assigning the value to it. So what we did was we assigned the CIA value to it, right? So that is what is called as asset identification and valuation. Now, be it your NIST CSF framework that we're talking about, be it SANS framework that we talk about, be it ISO 27001 that we speak of, you take any standard which is worldwide. The methodology which I explained on my whiteboard is going to be useful everywhere. Okay, so first step is your asset identification and valuation. Second is threat assessment. What immediately we did was we identified vulnerability, we identified risks, we identified we have provided the CVSS score to the vulnerability, that is vulnerability analysis, correct? Then we did risk evaluation. That means, if you remember, we have identified the risk value as well, wherein it was asset value plus the vulnerability score that we have identified divided by 2, correct? So, what I'm trying to tell you is RA, which is risk assessment. If you understand the process of asset register, vulnerability classification, scoring mechanism, assigning values, assigning criticality to the asset, the terms may be different in different methodology. The terms may be different in different process. The process or identification of or conducting a risk assessment remains the same uniform all across the standards. Now, tailored defenses. I mean, again, as I said, the different standard tries to come with different kind of norms and jargons. So, tailored defenses. Now, anybody else can come up with what do you mean by tailored defenses? We have already covered this. Don't worry. You have to just map this with what we discussed.
We're customizing the controls as per organization's requirement, tailoring it as per individual organization's requirement.
Fantastic. Yes. So not, who was it?
Sir Neeraj.
Neeraj. Fantastic. Can you give me example, Neeraj?
Okay. Sir, suppose as you told me about DOS and DDoS, the type of DOS and customizing it according to my based on the type of attack which I am facing or I am vulnerable to, or so accordingly I'll design it. So that is basically a type of customizing the control.
Okay, in one sense, yes, but there's something more to it. Okay. Now, when we say tailored defense, that means it's a thumb of rule of a thumb that not every organization is exactly having the same sort of implementation of controls and technologies. Correct? Somebody is using Cisco firewall, somebody is using Microsoft ASA, right? Just because this entire architecture is different in terms of technology, in terms of implementation, in terms of limitations, the required response or the required solutioning to mitigate the threat is also different, right? So I'll take an example as I explained it to you as well. I mean, rather, Neeraj has also taken it. DOS and DDoS. Now, some organizations may have Arbor into system, correct? See, DDoS mitigation solution. But not all the organizations have the capacity of buying that 16, 18 crores of software technology, right? But still, they want to protect themselves against the DDoS and DDoS attacks. So, what they can do is, obviously, they cannot be up to 100% effective in responding or stopping it, but they can actually bring IPS into the system so that if there's an anomaly-based detection or anomaly-based DOS happening, they'll be able to counter it to a certain extent, right? So tailored defense means customizing solution based on the available resources, okay, for industry to industry, company to company, and category to category. Last is continuous monitoring and adaptation. Now, I'm sure that you might have heard of SOC, correct? Security Operations Center. Yes?
Yes, sir.
What is the responsibility of SOC?
They monitor the threats 24/7 and suggest and take corrective actions.
Correct. So see, that is what. So Security Operations Center responsibility is to monitor. Okay? They monitor the network and infrastructure, IT infrastructure for any kind of anomaly-based event. Okay? So let's say there's a network scan, they will monitor. If there's an application threat, they'll monitor for application assets for it. Having said that, adaptation is something which is the core responsibility of Security Operations Center. What do you mean by adaptation? Adaptation means, let's say, for example, I have already explained you network scan. Okay, the network scan is happening. Now, when the network scan is happening, Security Operations Center is monitoring your SOC, is also monitoring your SIM solution. Correct? Now, on the screen, there are 15 network scan which have been alerted to SOC. Now, SOC will do an analysis whether the scan is happening from internal security review standpoint or if this scan is done by third-party malicious hacker who is sitting in the organization. Based on that, they will create rules and sets onto the system so that next time when there are scan done by these number of IP addresses, this will not be triggered onto the SOC monitoring console. Right? That's how they make this system not just viable for monitoring, but also adapted enough to for any sort of future activities or future security implementations, security changes. Okay, so SOC, mostly what happens is we take Security Operations Center just as a monitoring tool, but Security Operations Center is more responsible for making the organizations creating custom and tailored defenses, as well as helping organization for adaptation in terms of technology, adaptation in terms of their rules and guidelines. Okay, and when you talk about risk-driven cybersecurity approach or risk-driven cybersecurity assessment, these are the 6 steps that we have to ensure on one-on-one that that any organizations would want to drive it through NIST CSF framework. Now, just because we have this in our syllabus in studying, NIST is one of the finest, one of the good, I would say, cybersecurity framework, but that is not only the framework available. Okay? We have ISO standard, ISO 27001, which again is a very good process-driven control and process-driven standard, wherein you can implement exactly the right kind of technology, right kind of process, right kind of approach towards ensuring 100%, 99% security. Okay? Similarly, there are SAM guidelines which are available and stuff like that. Like for example, we are doing VA, right? Conducting a vulnerability assessment is a standalone process. You can conduct a vulnerability assessment based on your own predefined or customized solution, or else you can follow the methodology of OSSTM, which is open source standard methodology manual, or you can also follow ISAF, which is Information Security Analysis Framework. Okay? So depend on organization to organization, their requirement, you can choose whatever methodology you want to adopt into it. But core value remains the same. Core value or the values that we have talked about conducting RA remains throughout the same, irrespective of what process control or whatever framework or methodology you want to adopt. Okay? It will always remain the first step for all these kind of framework, and this thing will remain identification of your assets, which is listing down your assets, categorizing your assets in terms of severity, allocating their CIA value, identifying the vulnerabilities. So the key important factor is identifying vulnerabilities, and then after that it should come as a threat. So identify vulnerability, categorize your vulnerability, allocate severity to your vulnerability. Next comes is threat allocation, threat perspective, risk identification and categorization, remediation, and then monitoring. Irrespective of which standard you follow, these are the basic controls, these are the basic flow of the entire standard or framework. Yes, now we'll open for question and answer. I'll stop it here. We'll start with the benefits of risk-driven cybersecurity. Next topic, next session. Now we open for questions. Yes, I can see Neeraj and Akshay. You have to please help me with this.
Sure. So Neeraj may first go the question. Neeraj, sir.
Please.
Sir, so this steps which you showed, na, sir, likelihood is the likelihood of a particular occurrence of a threat. What is the what is the probability of a threat to take place, to occur and all? So is it covered in one of, because I missed the class, a part of that. So that is why I'm asking. This is one question. Sir, where is it, in which head will it come? This is one. Secondly, with regards to, sir, continuous monitoring and adaptation, you gave an example of 50 number of scans taking place in my network environment, and the same guy has detected that one. So because of the network got disconnected, my network got. So what solution you suggested, sir, in that case, if suppose 15? So in terms of adaptation, so that one also I just want to know. And with regards to likelihood of the of a threat to take place, where will it be coming up in the steps which you just showed?
Sure. So the likelihood, so as I explained earlier, when we are assigning a severity score, which is CVS score, there are 3 components which comes into consideration. One is impact. Okay. Second is likelihood, and third is ease of exploitation. Okay. So likelihood comes when you want to determine the severity of a threat or risk or vulnerability. Okay. So that's the answer one. Second is adaptation means, or monitoring and adaptation means security operations center keeps on monitoring your console. Okay? It may be your SIM solutions, your file server, web server, application server, and stuff. So if there are 15 scan which is happening in your network, let's say all of those attacks or all of this scan was happening within the organization itself, out of which security operations center, so the process as per SOC, what happens is, as soon as there's a network scan, all the 15 scan will pop up into the network security operations center control console. Now, all these 15 scans, the security operations center engineer will try to analyze those threats. Out of these 15 threats, what they do is they have analyzed that, okay, so what eventually processes, they will immediately call their level 2 managers and say that we have identified there are 15 scans which are happening. Is there a planned vulnerability assessment which is happening? They will say yes. So their manager will obviously do due diligence and check the schedule and all, and they will identify that okay, there have been a vulnerability assessment, which has been scheduled by the organization, and out of 15, there are 14 scans which are happening from the security assessment team. Okay. Now, next time what happens is the security operations center guy will what will do is now they understand that these 14 IPs are nothing but Nessus IP addresses. They will make the system adaptable so that these 14 IPs are whitelisted for doing network scan. So next time, if there's a scan which is happening from these 14 Nessus IP addresses, there will be no trigger done. So that is what is called as adaptation example that I've given.
Okay. Okay.
Clear?
Thank you.
My pleasure. Who's next? Any questions?
Ankit sir, may I ask your question, please? Ankit sir, is there any question to Alok sir, or you have raised your hand? Parag sir, you may ask your question. I think Ankit sir will. You may ask your question.
Okay. Sir, this is a question regarding VAPT. As an expert, how we often do VAPT? It's like once in a year, or just we do VA in a once in a year and 2 years and 3 years time of we can do PT, or we can have to do VAPT twice or once in a year. So your advice or your suggestions as an expert.
So, I'm sorry. So, Parag, see, this is actually organization to organization varies. Okay. So now, for example, there are organizations who are very serious about their cybersecurity posture. Okay, they're very serious about protecting their asset. So if they're very serious about it, they generally do quarterly. Okay? And even if any company is ISO certified, like ISO 9001, ISO 27001 stuff, it is mandatory for them to conduct a vulnerability exercise every quarter and give the report as part of compliance. If they don't do it, their compliance certificate is revoked. So for them, it is mandatory to have a third-party audit conducted every quarterly. Having said that, if some organization does not have any ISO standard or ISO policy, by way of doing, proposing as a secure, they want to conduct a bi-yearly exercise. That means every 6 months. So that depends on organization to organization, need to need basis. If you are ISO certified, it is mandatory that you have to do a every quarter exercise. Now, if you ask me about how often should I do I would suggest a company to do it. Consider a company which is a mid-average size company having around 1,000 servers. I will ask them to conduct a vulnerability assessment for all critical assets every month. Considering, if they have 1,000 assets, out of 1,000, only 200, 300 will be kind of systems. Now, there are a lot of parameters also. Like, for example, if I may want to ask you this very simple question, and we'll conclude in 5 more minutes. As per you, Linux is more secure or Windows is more secure?
So Linux.
Why?
So it's based on experience. Windows is kind of open source compared to Linux.
Windows is closed source. Linux is open source.
Windows have many loopholes also there.
Right. So I'll tell you. If you, yeah, please go on. Who else?
So in Windows, executable files can run easily compared to Linux. So auto program can be set and all.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, when this question goes to a normal common user, okay, whatever you have responded is you responded with a very common perspective. My job or role here and my effort today here was to make you think from a risk perspective, to make you start thinking from a cybersecurity standpoint. See, if I'm an administrator of a Linux machine, you know how many patches Linux releases every day? No idea, right? So if you are
no idea, sir.
Absolutely. So if you are a owner of asset which is of Microsoft, you know that Microsoft will release patches every Tuesday. So from Tuesday to Tuesday, I am relaxed. I don't have to worry about unless and until there's something which is very critical, 0-day kind of something has been reported. But if you are an administrator of Linux, you never know what sort of issues will be reported because it's an open source, and if it is open source, the community is too vast and they come up with a lot of bugs every day. Okay? So management of vulnerability assessment, and after vulnerability assessment, management of patch management, is very difficult in terms of Linux as compared to Windows. Okay? So that's what, when you mingle around with real life and case studies, it will be very much different. And there are a lot of parameters for us to define whether we want to conduct an VA or VM exercise quarterly, monthly, on a yearly basis. Okay, Parag? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Couldn't hear you. I hope it's fine. Anything else? Anybody who wants to ask something?
If there are no further questions, then we may close the sessions for today.
I think I can see one hand raised from Ankit.
Ankit sir, do you have any question to Alok sir?
Sir, I think it's by mistake the raise hand at the time of voting to continue the session.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've lowered the hands. No problem.
So there are no further questions, sir. We may close the session today. We thank you for your expert opinion on the risk assessment part and what factors to give for the risk assessment and the NIST framework also. Sir. Thank you, sir. And thank you for the session today.
It's my pleasure to connect with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much.
Thank
you.
Thank you.